In case you haven't been paying attention, there is a culture war going on all around us, everywhere in the Western world. It happens around the dinner table and at the pub, but most of all on the internet and in the mainstream media. Recently, one such battle took place at Studio 10, where longtime media personality Kerrie-Anne Kennerley dared to make a good point about far-left NPCs. She took exception to people protesting Australia's birthday, otherwise known as Australia Day. These NPCs are upset that white people dared come to Australia to build the great modern nation we now all get to enjoy, including Aborigines. Kerrie-Anne pointed out that none of these protesters were out in Aboriginal communities actually helping with the serious issues they currently face. She didn't use the words, but her implication was that so-called Invasion Day protesters were in fact merely virtue signalling rather than doing any real good. Oh, and it is Australia's birthday, as it was the day the British founded the first Australian colony. The 26th of January 1788 is our nation's birthday. Federation is the day we became a fully grown nation, and birthdays don't change no matter how badly you wish they could. Back to the story. Aboriginal communities do indeed have an epidemic of abuse and neglect. Worse still, the authorities often refuse to remove children from abusive homes for what they deem cultural reasons. For an in-depth analysis on this, you can watch my video, The Truth About the Stolen Generations, link in the description. Kerrie-Anne made a great point. These virtue signalling NPCs aren't doing anything productive with their time at all. Rather, they are just yelling as they walk through the Melbourne CBD, hundreds of miles from any Aboriginal community. Unfortunately, discourse in the current year has deteriorated to the point that productive discussions of this nature are nigh on impossible. Fellow panel member Yumi Stynes took exception to Kerrie-Anne's position and responded with a well-reasoned, highly articulate argument that made Kerrie-Anne rethink her own views. Ha, yes, that's just a little joke. Yumi responded in the only way the far left knows how. She called Kerrie-Anne a racist. In the mind of the left, this should be the end of the interaction, because the dreaded R word is supposed to elicit the usual reaction of, no, 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 I'm not a racist. But this is always a big mistake. Never ever justify yourself to a leftist, because that puts them in the box seat, as you are now forced to defend yourself. Too bad for Yumi, Kerrie-Anne wasn't playing the left's game and responded in the way you are supposed to. She threw the accusation right back in Yumi's face. She said she was very offended by the accusation, which, whilst not being the best possible response, was perfectly reasonable given the situation. Calling someone a racist in the current cultural paradigm can indeed be a career-ending accusation. Thus, it is an offensive thing to claim. The best response is to laugh at it, because coming from the left, it's nothing more than calling you a giant poopy head. You can also point out the truth of the matter, that the only reason they are crying racist is because you are white. Therefore, their exception to you is based solely on your race and nothing else, making them the genuine racists. Either way, Kerrie-Anne's response was effective. It got Yumi on the back foot, who first doubled down, then attacked her for making the mere connection between race and abuse. At this point, Kerrie-Anne could have mentioned the facts that Aboriginal communities do indeed have far more abuse than the rest of the country, although this isn't a big deal, because the beauty of this interaction isn't that Kerrie-Anne is in fact right, it's just how she responded. The interaction shows us that there is no point backing down in the face of leftist bigotry and their childish attacks. The best action is to stay the course and to keep fighting regardless of their slander, because above all, leftists are bullies. They win by shouting you down and keeping you silent. They win by making you afraid to speak out. This means the way you beat them is to refuse to back down and remain silent as they want you to, no matter what. Your opinions trigger them, so double down and let them get upset. The way to beat bullies is by standing up to them, because bullies are first and foremost cowards. They hide behind their size, their group, their loud megaphone, or some other form of protection. The best part of this interaction was the end of it, with Kerrie-Anne delivering the final burn.
If any one of these people who feel so strongly about this have ever done anything
you're also, by that statement, you're also implying that those 5,000 protesters, none of whom you know personally, are all lazy and idle and indolent.
I did not say that.
Yes, because you're asking me. Yeah, you're asking me if any of them have ever done anything, as though it's clear that they haven't.
No, don't draw a line that isn't there.
That's the line. I see it quite clearly.
Yeah, well, get new glasses. Yeah.
This exchange created the expected reaction and even got itself a massive protest outside Studio 10 the next day. Ha! That was just another joke. About 20 people turned up with a KKK sign, because who needs arguments when you can just cry racist over and over. Yumi Stynes acted as maturely as you'd expect from someone as articulate and intelligent as her. She refused to turn up to work the next day. In a normal world, this would earn her a reprimand, but in the world of the mainstream media, leftists are allowed to have a triggered day off. This story shows us something. The leftist hold on our culture is slipping away, even if they don't realise it. It's been happening slowly for a few years now, but at the start of 2019, we've really seen the momentum start to build. People are waking up to the lies, and it's fantastic to watch. It's important now that those of us who are awake push even harder. Bad Boy Senator Kerrie-Anne recently published an article in the XYZ, and I quote, "The acceptable window of political discourse in the days of Sir Robert Menzies, Jack McEwen and Arthur Calwell, which was reflected by not only the media of the day, but also in the views of the vast majority of Australians, has been shifted radically to the left since that time. The net effect of this is that a politician such as myself, expressing what would have been considered moderate mainstream views in the 1960s, is now called a racist and a right-wing extremist by other politicians and the media alike. But equally, what would have been considered extremist Marxist ideas in the 1960s, such as the denial of free speech, wealth redistribution, wholesale third world immigration, and gender fluidity, are now supported by the mainstream political parties and even governments. Yet, while the beginning of the lurch to the left in this country began with the radical left-wing Whitlam government, this did not cause the Overton window of acceptable political discourse to shift. In 1975 and again in 1977, the Australian people delivered thumping electoral defeats to the Whitlamites and a clear and overwhelming mandate to the Liberal Party to undo all that Whitlam and his cronies had wrought. What shifted the Overton window to the left, and what has continued to shift it to the left all the way up to the present day, was the refusal of the Liberal Party in government to reverse left-wing policies. Kerrie-Anne is 100% correct. The reason our society has moved relentlessly to the left isn't because of the strength of leftist arguments or policies, it's due to the weakness of those charged with opposing them. Rather than standing up to leftist bullies, those on the right either capitulated or outright joined the enemy. These are the people truly at fault for allowing our society to degrade into leftist, multicultural despair. Their weakness opened the borders, destroyed families, and divided our society. Their one job was to conserve our culture, and they have failed miserably at this task. They even made an outright left-wing globalist their leader in one of the greatest betrayals in Australian political history. It should be no surprise at all that the so-called centre-right coalition are now way behind in the polls and are likely to lose the next election. Not just that, but a quarter of the population now refuse to vote for either major party, and this is likely to grow as people become more and more disillusioned. The last time that number was this high, a new political party formed and gave Australia its longest-serving PM. The only thing that could possibly save the Liberals now is that the opposition are many times worse, but it's likely that even that can't save them. The ruling class might refuse to fight for a real cause, but that doesn't mean the rest of us have to lie down and capitulate. We now have a clear path in how to fight the leftist scourge that's gripped our nation. That is, never ever back down in the face of their bullying. Most of all, call out exactly what they are doing without shame or fear. When a leftist calls a white person a racist or a white supremacist or even a Nat-Z, it means nothing more than shut up, shut up, shut up. The only appropriate answer to this is no. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Share the truth around, and I'll see ya when I see ya.